Welcome to another episode of Reclaiming Timeless Ways with Mike Traster, along with myself, Simon Fuller. Glad to have you joining us for another ride in Mike's cranium. Where are you taking us today?
Well, over the years, I've never had a new car, and
Okay.
most of the cars that I bought were used to well used,
Right.
or poorly used, poorly maintained. So I had to figure out ways to take my modest income and keep things baling wired together, so to speak, right? So one of the things that I found is if you have a laundry list of questions and you go and you ask somebody all those questions, they will shut down and tell you to get lost.
Yeah.
But if you have one question, you can ask 20 people one question.
Sure.
Say, hey, I have a 2-minute question. Do you have 2 minutes? Not 3, 2. Maybe a minute and a half. Sure, what is it? So that's what you do. So you ask questions that way. What's the car with the least reliable transmission that I should avoid at all costs?
Sure.
Oh, boom, boom, boom. They will tell you the worst 3 transmissions ever built. Don't you ever buy one of those pieces of crap. You buy a $500 car and you're going to need a $5,000 transmission. Seriously. Literally. Ooh, okay. What are the worst engines? They will tell you, what are the best? What are the most bulletproof? What are signs that something is worn out? Put your finger in the tailpipe, and if it comes out coated with thick black, that car is blowing oil, things like that. Right? So you collect facts, one type of fact at a time. You ask people questions. You can even get on the phone and call up. See, we got different phone service than 30 years ago. You can call up 100 shops, and it doesn't add to your phone bill, right? So you could call up every car parts store in 30 miles, which is probably 15 or 20, right? And you can ask them, is there a brand of spark plugs that lasts the longest, right? Things like that.
Sure.
You'll get an answer.
Right.
Which are the ones you would stay away from? Are there any knockoffs that you have to watch out for?
And nowadays, Mike, you can get those opinions by checking out forums and looking things up online. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's so easy. You ask that same question and you'll get a lot of opinions, just kind of, might have to feed, and rifle through what's credible versus somebody just spouting that doesn't know what they're spouting about. But yeah, there's a lot of information to help you.
There is. There's a guy, I can't remember his name. He's a good guy. He talks really fast. He owns a farm, and he does a lot of experimenting and compares products. And his show on YouTube is called Project Farm.
Okay.
And he'll compare nail guns, electric drills, glues, automotive oils, additives, spark plugs, oil filters, and show you the differences. And they're dramatic in some circumstances. So you get a lot of good information. He's as far as I know, there's another guy who's a repairman, very experienced, very dramatic, talks like this. His name is Scotty Kilmer, and he's funny as hell, but he's honest, So one guy experiments a lot, and the other guy's a mechanic who's pretty competent. So you get a lot. So one product is called Regain, Regain, and it'll clean out the fuel system, right, and the valves over time, right? So you add it to the fuel, and then it slowly gives you more cleaner valves, so you get more better combustion, right? Another one is called Restore, and Restore is made with a compound called CSL, so Charles, Steve, Larry, CSL. And it's got these microscopic particles in it, which I believe are calcium, silver, and lead.
Okay.
And what happens is it's small enough that it won't plug up an oil filter. So the particulates are smaller than the openings in the filter paper, right? And that's critical. So as it circulates in the oil, because you put it in the oil. The rings press it into the small microscopic porosities and imperfections in the cylinder wall, and it increases compression
Okay.
dramatically. So you wind up with much better oil pressure. I've had one engine that was running at like 18 pounds, and it bumped it up to like 40.
Okay.
Extraordinary. So it went from on the edge of bad to excellent. And about every 2 years, I have to put another $6, $8 can in. That's,
Pretty good return on investment.
oh my goodness. I mean, basically you're going for, I'm 8 to 10 months away from a dead engine to maybe you get another 5 or 10 years
Right.
out of an engine. So regain for cleaning fuel system and the valves, restore. There's an old product, I think it quadrupled in price. You can probably still get it. It's called Transmedic, and it's a solvent, but it has some high-pressure lubricants in it to help an automatic transmission that's older function longer. It doesn't fix mechanical flaws, but it has some, if I remember right, it has some solvents in it and some conditioners that help seals become more flexible so they work more efficiently. And I've been in an automatic once, confused the hell out of me, but there's a bunch of shafts that move back and forth according to what gear you're in, and there's pressure that gets put on the shaft, and the shafts have like little O-rings on them. When the rings get old, they get hard, and then the transmission fluid flows past them instead of pushing them, so it doesn't shift properly. And that's when you get bad shifting or no shifting. It won't go into gear, and it gets overheated, and then you don't have a transmission. So Transmedic, there's another one called Valve Medic, and a lot of times if you have an old engine or you get a bad oil change or you didn't change it, like for a year and a half or 2 years, something stupid, this will help to clean up particles that have formed in the hydraulic valve lifters. So when you get that tick, 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 tick
Yeah.
sound, that'll help clean that out. And I've used it, 3 or 4 times over the years with good success, Now, obviously damage comes in different levels, and at some point you can't fix something.
Right.
There's a product I was talked to about by a friend of mine once, many years ago, called Schaefer's oil.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it. And Schaefer's has a compound in it called molybdenum disulfide. And molybdenum disulfide is what's called a solid lubricant. And if you could imagine microscopic little plates, like almost microscopic plates of plastic or glass, flat, right? Super, super slippery and highly pressure and heat resistant. So they build up layer on layer and they slide over each other, right? And they fill in little imperfections, and they, to some degree, polish the engine, but they reduce friction in the engine. So if you took, say, an object like my phone, and it was a specific area and a specific weight, and you pushed it, and you could measure how much force it took to push it on a polished surface. If you changed what was between them with a different kind of lubricant, you could reduce the friction. So that's called a frictional coefficient. It's just a big fancy word. It means it's more slippery.
Yeah.
So moly reduces wear. And the Schaefer's moly is really good because some moly products, the particles drift out of suspension and they wind up collecting. But the stuff that they make has an electrical charge that keeps it in suspension permanently, so it can't accumulate and clog up oil passages. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Schaefer engine rebuilds, you will find engine after engine after engine that went 400,000 or 500,000 miles and longer, and they look gorgeous. after 500,000 gas engines. We're not talking about diesels, gas engine. Remarkable, very expensive oil. It's like $12 a quart or something. But, you know, how much is an engine?
Correct. So you're putting that in every oil change then, Mike, am I
Well,
understanding
yeah,
that?
you can either use the oil or you can just buy the additive, which
Okay.
is somewhere between $5 and $10 for a pint.
Okay,
So personally, I think the only oil I like to use is a full synthetic.
okay,
I just think they're more resistant to heat,
Yeah.
the thermal breakdown, and they're more stable, and they tend not to have blow-by problems where they wind up blowing past the rings out the tailpipe. So if you get a cheap oil, it has a lot of blow-by. That's called a volatility index. And the volatility index means that's the temperature at which the oil turns to a gas and goes out the tailpipe.
sure.
Right? So the better oils have better volatility indexes and other things, right? So adding some Schaefer's to whatever oil you use, or adding their additive, is going to make things last longer. For transmission, there was a guy rebuilt my transmission years ago, and then I had to have an adjustment done. This guy sold a product called Lube Guard.
Okay.
It was like $13. I think it's about $18 or $20 now, and it's made out of a desert plant called jojoba, Jojoba, and it helps. Yeah, jojoba, and it just makes the transmission fluid more efficient and last longer, and it transmits heat more efficiently, so it doesn't get as hot. And the hotter tranny fluid gets, the less it lives.
Sure.
And then when it gets heated up, it forms deposits that are called lacquers, and they make your transmission fail.
Okay.
Transmissions are 2,500 and up,
Sure.
right? It could be $7 or $8 grand, depending on, like for a big van or a tractor trailer, a fortune, you know. So this stuff, he told me he put a bottle. This guy that ran this tranny shop, he put a bottle in every transmission that he built as an insurance, so he had less issues. Amazing. For radiators, you know, you get failures. So there's all different kinds of products that help to plug up little pinholes, right, or minor little leaks. But old-timers used to use pepper, mustard, finely ground tobacco, and ginger, and turmeric. And all of those things, if they're powdered fine, if they're not powdered fine, they will clog up your radiator and destroy your engine. So all these things you have to use with caution, and it's on you. It is not on us, right? So take heed. But all those things can be used like old-timers. Egg whites. They would put an egg white in the radiator, and as the egg, it would break up in the hot water, and then the protein in the egg would get pushed to where it was leaking, and it would get cooked, and oftentimes plug a hole, right? So going back to what I was talking about earlier, this guy who does a testing project farm.
Okay.
So I think if I remember right, he did a lot of testing on different radiator and head gasket repair products.
Sure.
And other people have too, and you can see which ones work. There are products that work. I remember buying one once. I think it had sodium silicate in it. It was very heavy. I don't remember the name of the product. This was 30 years ago, and it had a horrendous leak in an old 460 Lincoln that I had, and it fixed it. I never had a problem with it again.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. In terms of, it doesn't work every time, but it works. If it works a third of the time and you're out $20, you know, that's a big. For epoxies, I like.
We got a special guest on the video. Hi, Rick.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good to see
You
you.
know, you get to be on TV
Mike.
now.
I've seen you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
You're our parents.
Hi, how you doing?
You're my mom's mom and dad.
Yeah,
Yes. Right.
you're all gonna be on the show now.
We're good. We're good. How you guys doing?
Absolutely,
What?
absolutely, yes,
Can take some
yeah,
without myself.
oh, yeah,
Without you?
yeah.
Hey. That's why he wants to come say hi. Enjoy the show.
You just never know, Mike, so that's the nephew.
That's life.
That's life.
good.
And
That's the good.
That's the beauty.
It's an alive program,
And we're
right?
doing tips and tricks on fixing your vehicles, but to repair any sort of a relationship, I guess I maybe didn't have to repair it, but to lube up the relationship, you just give your nephew candy, and he'll always come
Oh,
to you. So
okay.
there's my fix-it.
Okay, yeah. So some of the products contain, some of the sealing products for coolants contain things like silver and copper powder and microscopic amounts of Gore-Tex,
Okay.
yeah, which they use like to make,
Clothing, yeah.
yeah. and
Like a water
shoes.
repellent.
Right, right. So it's tough. There's a solvent that you can put in your oil or in your fuel as directed.
Right.
Not just more is better. More is not better. More is a disaster. It's called Marvel Mystery Oil, and it contains a bunch of solvents, and then they've got some kind of minty smell in it. And it's good to help with combustion and just to keep oil cleaner, keep the engine cleaner. I've found that it works. There's an additive in old oils that's out of style now for good reason. And it was a good additive for old engines called ZDDP, and it means zinc dialkyl dithiiophosphate. And it's a big word, but it helped with lubricating valves.
Okay.
In the old engines before they got rid of the lead. So the problem with the zinc additives, and I think that, STP has a lot of ZDDP in it. The problem with it is it can plug up catalytic converters. So you have to use it very carefully, if at all.
Yeah.
So I would say go to the manufacturer and say, can I,
Right.
or how much is okay and how much, if any, is too much,
Sure.
right? So now in the engine and the transmission, in the rear end, every place except the brake system, in the power steering, you get seals that get hard and leak. And there's one product that I think, from what I've read, is better than the others, and it's called AT205.
Okay.
And this guy Kilmer, Scotty Kilmer, talks about, he loves the stuff. As far as I know, he doesn't get paid. We're not getting paid. Damn.
Yeah, so there's no bias here, right?
Come on. Money? No bias. None. I've never used it. I've listened to people talk about it, but I have not used it. If you have an old car that, let's say you pick up a car from the 60s or the 50s, and you want to upgrade the ignition system, there's a product that I've used, I think, 4 different times, called Pertronix Igniter, Pertronix. And what it is, it's a whole ignition system built into the distributor cap.
Okay.
You just pull out the rotor and the condenser, and you put a few parts in, connect 2 wires. For somebody like me that's not wiring brilliant, it's an hour or less time.
Okay.
It's not problematic, and they work wonderfully. And the thing is, points float. When you get to a higher RPM, the points mechanically open and close. I don't know if you've had a point engine or not. Maybe in an old boat,
Yeah.
you know, or if you have a car like from the 60s or earlier.
Yeah, I doubt I've had anything, but
Okay. But these things, so you could run a car at 1,000 RPM or at 4,000 RPM, and as the engine RPMs increase, the point accuracy decreases, because there's something called float there's a little bit of lag time in the spring for it to close efficiently. This bypasses that. It all works on what's called a magnetic pickup. It's a disc. It looks like just a flat disc, and it's got pickups on it for 4, 6, or 8 cylinders. They make them for almost any engine. Cars, trucks, I think maybe motorcycles, boats. I've had, I think 4 systems. One failed. They sent me credit for a new one like that.
Yeah.
They're fantastic people. I was out in, I think, Utah, and there was a family in a station wagon broken down on the side of the road, and the guy's crawling under the car. He's got a stream of gas pouring out of his gas tank, like a water pistol, right? So he was really losing gas, and he was smart enough to stop. And I had some glue called Seal All, and it's a red and yellow container, little tube. And what I did was I carefully scraped the bottom of the tank, not making sparks, right? So it's clean. You don't want sparks around gas,
No.
right? And then I put a layer of this stuff on it and a layer of aluminum foil. And then I repeated that about 5 or 6 or 7 layers. So 6 or 7 layers of aluminum foil is pretty tough. And this particular adhesive is gasoline proof.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, that would be like, it would probably be like 3 or 4 layers, like a piece of, almost like the thickness of shirt cardboard.
Sure.
Right? It was patched, stopped leaking, and they were safe to get down the road. Cost me 30 cents and 30 minutes. Who cares?
Right.
So I helped them. The one other thing is, if you have a leaking windshield, just plain old tube of silicone. You just take your finger, just run a bead, and then smooth it in the crack, clean off any garbage that's in there, like, branches and leaves and stuff.
Right.
And dry it, which just do it with a rag or a paper towel. Then put that in there. And when I've done it, the leak stopped.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any more leak, no more trouble. And now, for my ritual,
That wraps up some of Mike's tips and tricks to add some life to your engine.
oh, there is one more. I saw this old boy from Mexico on the net, and he had an old ball joint go bad, lower, squealing like hell, just dry as a bone, and he didn't have any money to replace it. So what he did is he got an electric drill, and he drilled a small hole in the bottom of the part, right? And he threaded in a Zerk, and he pumped some grease into it, so the proper size Zerk thread for that hole, right? And turned the wheel twice, all sound went away, and the thing functioned again. So
Interesting.
there are solutions.
Absolutely.
I think prevention is
A big piece of it.
Huge.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely-
Especially for the average individual, Mike, that maybe I'm not going to be pulling out an engine anytime soon. That's well past my abilities.
Yeah.
So the prevention side of it protects me from having to make that investment because I can't do it myself.
I've done it, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And now it's hard.
Yeah.
Because the cars are small, and it's front-wheel drive, and it's
Whole different world.
a terribly different world. They designed it so you can't service your stuff, unless you got a lot of experience and a lot of equipment.
Right.
So
Preventative. Very good.
I think that's it.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Until
you.
next time, have a great day on Reclaiming Timeless Ways.